On this week's episode of Live with Jayson John Evans, we're going to talk about how to beat writer's block, how you can create great quality recordings from home on a budget. You can set up a really cool home recording studio without it costing you too much money that'll drastically increase your music career. And thirdly, the big question is, how can music artists earn a full-time living from doing what they love? Three great questions. Hopefully I'm here to give you great answers. Well, I mean, let's just stick around and we'll find out. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Live with Jayson John Evans. As you can see, it's looking a little bit different, you know? We're just taking that extra step each episode, just trying to provide a better quality experience all around. I mean, I'm just plagued with technical difficulties all the time, so I mean, you got to bear with me with that. And of course, as soon as I start recording, my other computer starts making noises. That's just how it is. But I mean, last episode, if you remember, my phone kept going off with Instagram notifications, so I've turned that on silent, but there's too much stuff to juggle. If I could show you the camera around, there's just so much stuff in here that I've got to make sure it's all fine. But how have you guys been? How have you been specifically? How's your week been? Has everything been good to you? I've been getting back into the swing of things, that's for sure, especially with having this baby around and adjusting into dad life. It's just strange, like the days just blur together and I'm like, man, I forgot to take the bins out one night because I didn't know it was bin night, all over the place. So I guess you know, it's just you got to bear with me while I get back into the swing of things. But the good news is I actually have gotten back into the swing of things when it comes to my book. I've actually been back into editing that. I'm almost through the first draft, which means that it's heading toward, you know, the final stages. It's pretty much written. So really cool stuff. I can't wait to get that out there because I know it's going to change the way that you guys approach music, and I know it's going to change the way you specifically approach selling your music and making your music dreams happen. I'm so proud of it. But then again, I started writing it a few months ago, and since then I've had so many more ideas. So I just want to make sure that when I finish this draft, you know, go through it again and make sure that it says absolutely everything that I wanted to say, because I'd rather put too much information into it than, you know, you get it and read it and say, you know, there wasn't enough in this, or, you know, it was too short. So trying to do the best I can with that, but I'm super proud of it so far, and I can almost guarantee that you're going to love it. That's for sure. But as I was saying, that information that's within that, like, you know, I don't want to have to wait another, you know, it might be 3 months or so till the book comes out. Who knows? It might be sooner, it might be later. But I don't want to have to wait that long to be able to help you with your music goals, right? So a couple of weeks ago, I said I was giving away, I was going to start doing my branding calls, like when I do the workshop that I usually do on a Skype call, take it to like a group-based situation and try to put more value in than I could provide on these branding calls. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't expect it to book out so quickly. I nearly said sell out, but it doesn't cost anything. It booked out really quickly, and so much so that I have a document on my computer of just filled with names that are on a waiting list for the next one. Everyone's really keen, and I mean, that's so motivating for me. And you know, that just I was only going to do a couple of them here and there, but I think I might start doing them more often. As long as you guys are keen for it, I'm going to start putting them on. Now, I can't guarantee when they're going to be. I'm not going to say I'm doing them every week at whatever time. I'll do them whenever I have time to do them. But if you want to be on the waiting list for that, there's a link inside my Instagram bio. You can click that and it will take you straight to where you can sign up and be next on the waiting list to be able to be offered a seat when I do these presentations. As I said, I don't want to open them up to like 100 people at once. I like to keep them small at like 10. So I've got quite a few more to do to be able to catch up to the waiting list. And I'm sorry to the people that have been messaging me. I get a few messages each day saying I haven't received an email yet, and it's because I book these in advance. And when I find time in my schedule, or when I'm able to, I'll be like, you know what, I'm doing one of these how to dominate the new music industry workshops, and then I will let the next 10 people on the list know. And if they can't make it, I invite more people and stuff. So I eventually just make sure 10 spots are filled, and then eventually I'll get around to inviting everyone around to it. But the first group presentation went so well, man. It was so fun. It was 3.5 hours. I thought it would go between 2.5 and 3, but I just made these presentation slides so cool. We talked about everything from like square one to, I don't know, what's that? I don't even know where that was going, but you know what I'm talking about, where you start in the beginning to how to get to make your music dreams happen. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Everyone that was there seemed to love it too. So if you're watching this now and you join me for that, thank you so much. Or if you're listening now and you join me for that, thank you so much for joining me. I had so much fun. And I'm sure, I mean, from what I've spoken to you guys, everyone seemed to have gotten a lot out of it, which is super, super cool. And that means more to me than, as I said, so that's super motivating, and it just makes me want to go and help more people with it. So I'm going to be doing them. So come join me, come put your name down, and I might be in touch with you very shortly to try to get these workshops happening more often, because the more people I can help reach their music goals, the better. As I said, I don't want your money. This doesn't cost anything. I don't try to sell you anything. This isn't one of those fake training sales webinar things that you go on and it's just 90 minutes of a big sales pitch to buy a course. None of that. I don't sell you anything. There's not one point where I offer you any product to buy from me or anything like that. It's 100% to give you as much value as I can within 3.5 hours, and really help you forward and give you that advantage that a lot of other music artists just don't have. So if you're interested in that, send me a message and we'll make it happen. So the first question we have here today on Live with Jayson John Evans, episode 14, I do believe, is how do I break writer's block? Now, this is a really, really cool question. I like this one. The reason I like it is because writer's block seemed to be something that not only myself, but every music artist I ever had anything to do with ever has struggled with. Writer's block is just, some people call it the stream of creativity, and sometimes it's there and you've got to make use of it while it's there, and other times it's not there. I don't think it is as out of our control as I initially once did think it was, if that makes sense. I 100% when I was younger used to think that you're either feeling creative or you're not. And it's like, it's either there or it's not, and you have no control over it. So make use of it while it's there, but I really do think we have more control over it than we may think. And I've spoken to my wife about this quite a bit too, because, she's a songwriter as well. She's a ghostwriter for a few different places and stuff. She writes for a studio over in New York and stuff. So being on call to write songs like that is, you kind of have to know how to manage writer's block, right? Because if you get a new job in that says you've got to write a song for this artist and you're not feeling creative, how can you really how can you exist or function in a job like that, right? Because you need to be able to turn it on when it's there. So she's quite good at managing writer's block as well, and she's got some cool exercises for that too. Hers more aimed specifically at lyrics and melodies and stuff. So like for a singer, for example, she's got a really cool exercise that, I'm sure she doesn't mind me telling you, but is to sit down with a piece of paper and listen to the music that you're trying to write for, and then just put pen to paper and just start writing. So don't take your pen off the paper for 5 minutes. Set a timer for a full 5 minutes. Just keep writing on the piece of paper. Just listen to the song and just write stuff. Don't ever stop to read over your notes. Don't ever stop to make sense of what you've written down. Just keep going. If it's a picture, if you feel like drawing a picture, draw a picture. If you feel like writing words, that's even better. But it'll allow you to at least get out something. Okay, so if you're feeling like writer's block, a lot of the times we choke that and just say, you know what, I'm not in the mood for writing, I'll do it later, and procrastinate. Okay, but if you can sit down and start writing, once that 5 minutes is up, once those 5 minutes are up, I should say, you look at the piece of paper and you'll see in front of you at least a starting point. Hopefully you might read through, you might have written 2 or 3 pages full of notes, and you might find just one little line that could be your spark of inspiration to help you go on to write lyrics for a full song. If you can't find it, start the 5 minutes over and go again, but you'll find that next time you're even more refined in what you're writing down. You'll be somehow trying to communicate how that song makes you feel, and that'll be the start of breaking through that writer's block for you. Now, my example for writer's block, this is, I don't write too much, these days anymore. I'm not really writing for being in a band anymore or anything like that. Those days are kind of, few and far between. I don't really do that much. But I do know from dealing with writer's block in the past that the trick is to not consider it like it's a stream of creativity, that assuming that if it's not there, that you can't make it be there, if that makes sense. Because if you're telling yourself all the time, like, I'm just not creative at the moment, I just have to wait for that inspiration, you'll sit around waiting for way too long and you'll just waste time, right? So the whole idea that I find the best way to beat writer's block, in my opinion, that has worked for me countless times, and I highly recommend it. If you find yourself stuck in a certain way, and you can't seem to write any, it doesn't matter if you can't seem to write music or if the music you're writing is starting to become too similar. It's because you need to shake things up, not just with your music writing. I'm talking more so outside of the box. So your external factors that you may not think contribute, they do. Okay. So what I do normally is if I'm finding that I'm repeating myself too often in my music, or I'm not writing anything fresh, I start to change what I engage myself in, if that makes sense. And being a musician is about that. This is why you have famous actors that go on to method act, right? They go on to live as a character to get that inspiration. Now, I'm not saying you need to pack your bags and move to a foreign country, but I guarantee you pretty much if you do that, you'll start writing good music because it'll inspire you. You can do that on a much smaller scale from home. So instead of doing something that drastic, you could just find yourself think about what you do in your daily life. Do you follow certain routines? Are you just doing the same thing over and over again? Because if you're watching the same TV shows, if you're reading the same books, if you're watching the same type of movies, if you doing the same exercise, whatever you're doing, right? Same foods or whatever, anything external, if they're all the same, I mean, even like if you're listening to the same music that you normally do, or even the same podcast, I could go on, like whatever you're engaging in as part of your daily life, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, chances are you're eventually going to end up with writer's block or writing the same type of music because you've only got the same sources of inspiration each time. So what you need to do is shake it up. It could start as something like as strange sounding as eating something different for breakfast, or eating your lunch somewhere else, or going for a walk, or reading a different type of book, or put on a movie that you have always wanted to watch but you just have never gotten around to it because it's a little bit too different. Watch different TV shows. Just shake up your external life, because those are all going to be the subconscious factors that contribute to your inspiration. Now, you'll find inspiration in the weirdest place. If you do that and you switch it up, it just changes everything, right? It changes your whole brain chemistry, and you'll find that inspiration will be at different turns that you just didn't expect, because you're providing the opportunity for it to present itself. Think of it this way: if you don't change things up, if you keep things kind of standard, you're kind of trying to I don't say the word drain, but like mine, I guess. It's funny because I was actually thinking of like an oil well, like it's like a stream of water. I am getting distracted, but say you're trying to mine creativity, you've kind of dried up that well. Oh my goodness, I'm all over the place. You know what I'm trying to say. If you've listened to a show before, it's difficult to keep up sometimes with my broken thoughts, but not keep up with, but make sense of. See, I'm doing it even when I'm trying to explain itself. How meta is that? Even if that is the correct word to use there. But anyway, as you understand, if you're looking in the same places for creativity and for inspiration each time, sometimes it won't be there because you've used it all. So go somewhere else, change your inspiration, look elsewhere, and make bigger things happen somewhere else. Because if you can, that is when you're going to start seeing big results, and the most inspiring things will come out of nowhere. I mean, when I've changed things up and done things differently and just done things that just kind of make my brain not just get comfy and just be like, well, this is just monotonous routine each day, you'll find that you'll be like just going for a walk, or you'll randomly, I don't know, like one of the times I found that, because I read somewhere one time, this is where I got it from, that I read somewhere that, I don't know if this is true or not. If it is, I mean, it doesn't matter if it is or not because it helped me. If it helped me, then it doesn't matter, right? But I'm pretty sure that Albert Einstein worked in a postal office to try to, when he had trouble solving equations as part of his, general mathematics and, that type of side of things, right? If he couldn't solve an equation, he would go and work at another job that allowed his mind to be taken off that, so that he could approach it from a different angle. And it's the same thing with your brain, right? Like, if that's your brain and you're using this part of it all the time, if you start using this part, it allows this part time to breathe and to try to think it out, and eventually just provide you with that what you're looking for out of it again, that type of performance, right? So Albert Einstein moved to a post office and started working in there, and he solved, I think that was the reason he solved a few of the equations he was looking at, was because he was able to put his brain at a different to operate on a different channel, so to speak. So that's what I did, right? I changed up how I was going about writing music. I would, I would just do things differently. I used to, I found an app on my phone for like Sudoku, and I'd never really learned how to do Sudoku. And even after doing 100 of them, I'm still no good at it. But it allowed my mind to be taken off the normal creative side and be put more on the rational side, and start, trying to work out these puzzles. Because if you, it's like any muscle, I guess. Like if you lift things all day, your arms are going to get tired, so you can't expect your arms to keep lifting things later in the night. The same thing goes with your legs. If you walk too much, you're not going to be able to walk for a while till you rest them. So if you're trying too hard to write music, switch it to something rational, go to something creative, change your points of what you're indulging in and what you're engaging in, switch it all up so you're using different parts of your brain. Let that other side take a rest. And by the time, sometimes you'll sometimes you'll just be out doing your other activity, and bam, there's the inspiration for you right away. And I had like riffs come into my head when I was like doing a completely weird thing that, I might just be walking down the street and all of a sudden there it is. There's the idea for the riff I've been thinking of. Or I could have been doing a Sudoku puzzle and there it is. That's the lyric or the melody I've been looking for this whole time. But other times, if you just if you take that break, when you find yourself revisiting it, that'll be when you'll be able to find that inspiration. Because as soon as you'll sit down, you'll just be able to play if you play an instrument, or you'll just be able to start writing lyrics because you've given yourself that break. Now, a lot of the times people do say with writer's block to just take a break from music for a while and come back to it. But the issue is, a lot of the times music artists will take a break by moving from, where you record at your little demo station at home, or wherever you write music in your little studio, and you might move to another area of the house and watch TV. You're definitely watching TV. That shouldn't be in quotations, but you're not focused on it, right? You're thinking too much about your song still, or you might be like, I'm taking a break from writing music. I'm going to go listen to music. Like, I'm saying take a break into another area altogether and start using different parts of your brain, because if you can do that, the other side recovers and it'll be fresher than ever when you return to it. And that's how you make sure that the stream of creativity is available to you. I won't say on demand, because it's not like, you sit down straight away, do a Sudoku puzzle and you've got your answer, but it'll allow you to give yourself that little bit of space you need, and your creativity will be around much quicker than it would have been if you just told yourself, hey, I've got writer's block, and you put that label on yourself and then you can't move forward. So hopefully that's helped you, but definitely that's the trick to it. That's the way I've always managed to beat it. And Sarah's exercise, my wife's one, is really cool too. I didn't know about that one until she told me, and I love recommending it to people because it worked for me as well. So the second question today is, do I need to put money into a home recording studio? This is a really good one too. I don't know. I think I sit at a weird age because I'm 30. So that means I grew up, when I was like 18, you needed to, if you wanted good quality recordings even when I was 18, you needed to go and pay to be at a really good recording studio. Okay. And these recording studios cost an absolute fortune. And before I was 18, that's not like it was just around that time. When I was younger too, it cost even more to record, and there was less that you could do at home. But so I've seen it all change. It's like the internet. Like, I could be, if you're listening or watching right now and you're 18, you've never really grown up with the internet being like terrible like it used to be, like with dial-up, and how like, oh man, it's crazy how quick the world has changed. And I know I'm sounding like an old man by saying this, but I remember like, it wasn't that long ago that if you wanted to use the internet, you needed to physically be at a desktop PC. You couldn't, like a laptop like this needed to be plugged into Ethernet and to be plugged into the wall because there was no Wi-Fi. Like, that was kind of recent when that all came out, but now people just take it for granted. We all walk around with phones on us smartphones and stuff. I remember when I was, when I was 18, I got a phone, which was, in America, you guys call them, sidekicks, but in Australia they're called hip tops for some reason. But I had a Sidekick 2 or a hip top 2, and it had MSN Messenger on the phone, and my friends thought it was fake. They didn't believe me when I told them it did. They're like, there's no way that you could be on MSN like at school. Which is crazy to think about, because yeah, sure, that was like 12 years ago, so it was a while ago, but that's not that long in like the history of time. Okay, so things have changed so quickly that I don't think music artists really understand, especially you younger guys. So you have your whole lives in front of you, but just understanding how great the age is now that we live in to record high quality recordings from home. This is just one of those things. So I started recording, just as a bit of a backstory to my to what I've been through, because I think maybe it might help you along your way, I guess. But when I was 14 years old, I got a Behringer microphone, which is worth nothing, and it was pretty rubbish. It was just a dynamic vocal microphone, and a PA head unit. And I found out one day when I had just some adapters laying around for audio adapters, I should have just said, I could plug it out of the PA head unit that I had of this microphone and plug it straight into the soundboard of my computer, and I could record really bad line-in, mic'd up guitar amps. And I thought that was pretty cool, because I was like, wow, I can actually, it's something that'll sound so silly now. I'm going to sound like I grew up in the Stone Ages, but I really didn't. It was just one of those things like, man, I can play guitar, and look, I've got a good recording of it on my computer, and I can mic it up, and it felt like I was being a sound man, so it's pretty cool. Then I realized one day that I needed drums. So I downloaded a, cracked version, FBI, if you're listening, I didn't say what you thought I said, version of Fruity Loops. And I used these one-shot drum samples on my laptop that were like absolutely rubbish. I had no idea what I was doing, but I realized that I could use it like a drum sequencer and write in a beat. So, I wrote pop punk, so everything was like da-da-da, 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 the same beat on repeat a million times. It never changed. I should say the choruses went to a halftime beat. But anyway, so then I would, bounce these drums out and then record guitar to them in Cool Edit Pro. And it would sound like you put bees in a tin can and shook them up with like a few like nuts and bolts in the tin can as well, because that's what the drums sound like. So it didn't sound fantastic at all, but it was cool because I could actually record. So that's what it used to be not that long ago. Now, as time went on, I bought a better mic, and I realized how to record a bit better and that kind of thing. And I got better guitar amps, and so my guitar sounds got better, and I learned how to mix slightly better. Got a better computer, like as I got older. And then one day we had, so at my house, my mum bought my brother and I an electronic drum kit, like a Yamaha one, so my brother could learn how to play drums, and without needing a full acoustic kit in the house, because it's too loud and stuff. So, and then I realized that headphone out of that Yamaha kit could actually be plugged into my computer as well, and I could record drums now. So from that, I started telling my friends that were in bands, like, hey, if you want me to record your demos, I will. Just come over. So come over and record, and I'll record them for you. So I did that. As I said, they would pop around, and it would be fun. I recorded. I had like 4 of my closest friends in high school. They went in a band together, and I actually recorded their first demo ever in my house off the electronic drum kit, and we just experimented with sounds. Like, I remember it was really fun because I was like, what would the guitar amp sound like if it was at the back of the room? And the mic was at the other end of the room. It didn't sound that good, but it was fun to muck around with stuff. We mucked around with pedals, and we did all these really cool things, and just thinking like, how good do you sound when you sing in the shower? And because it was my house, there's a little shower there. I was like, take the mic in there. Obviously not having a shower at the time, but just standing in the shower, fully clothed, of course, unless that was optional, but whatever. They could sing in the shower and use the mic in there, and we used that effect for a couple of songs too. So it was really fun to get really kind of experimenty with it, but that kind of just opened my perspective as to how to get better sounding recordings. So I realized that mic doesn't sound good there, and I needed another mic. If I had the guitar amp up one end of the room, I needed other mics in the room too, and in order to do that, I needed a better interface, blah, blah, blah. So from the money I got from recording a few local bands, I just put it all back into recording gear, and I ended up saving up enough to open a home recording studio at about 19. So from that, and then just business picked up from there, and I started recording. That's the birth of my recording studio. But it all came from doing a couple of rough demos. So my whole point with that little anecdote there was to show you that, like, we had nothing and we still made it work. These guys released that demo and it was completely fine. Now, if you brought that out nowadays, it wouldn't sound up to scratch with everything that's available, because everything is so available these days, and you can get such great sounds out of nothing. You don't need much money or much effort or even much gear now. Like, I remember when I first started, I had to buy like a 16-channel desk with all these like inverters and all this kind of stuff, and then you needed another thing to be able to make it convert to a computer. And nowadays you just get really high quality preamps in like a really small box, and that's good enough for anything you need. So you don't need much money. So don't take that for granted. I was a very long-winded explanation there, but really don't take it for granted how the age we live in for creating music. The reason that's so cool is because of the fact that so back to when I was younger and I was recording bands, I had to buy a 16-channel desk because I needed a way to record. My first desk was an 8-channel desk, so I was able to record different microphones on a drum kit, so kick, snare, 3 toms, and then a couple overheads, a hi-hat mic, and maybe that's it. That's 8. So I think so. Whatever. I didn't count, but that was all I could really do, was just most of a drum kit of a standard size drum kit. Nowadays, it's not like you still need to buy, an interface to record a full drum kit. And I mean, you should be so thankful for that, because even though I had that desk and it cost me thousands of dollars to buy this desk to be able to record a drum kit, and then on top of that, the microphones, and then on top of that, like, cabling, stands, acoustic treatment for the room. Like, you don't think about that, but no drum kit is going to sound that great like in a house unless you acoustically treat it properly. And I didn't have the money to acoustically treat my room properly, so I had to just make do with what I had. So, and I guess, I mean, thinking about that was kind of like necessary only because I was recording other people's bands, their music, right? But for me, just recording my own demos, I actually never used live drum kits. And that's what I don't think you need to do nowadays either, because we've got like producers nowadays recording absolute chart-topping hits that are like taking over the world, and they're just doing it from their laptop in their bedroom. They don't even record anything, like, electronic producers and that kind of stuff. Like, even when a few years ago now, like it was like 7 years ago now, but when Skrillex was huge, he did all his stuff from a laptop. He didn't need to buy an absolute ton of gear to make it work for him. But then you have someone like Deadmau5. If you ever seen Deadmau5's studio, he's just got walls and walls of like vintage and like new age as well, analog synthesizer gear and all this crazy stuff. But that's not necessary. He's just got that because he has the money to do that. But you don't need that. So it depends. If you're an electronics producer, you could just get away with a laptop. You just got to learn how to mix better. And that's the world we live in. But even if you live in like the other end of the scale, like a symphony metal band, okay, so you've got all these instruments you want to put in, if it was back in the day, you'd have to find a symphony orchestra to record that in a big recording studio with all the preamps and the gear and all this kind of stuff, and it costs you an absolute fortune, as well as drums, guitars. How do you make everything sound good? But nowadays you can make ridiculously good quality recordings with one interface straight into your laptop. I say this all the time, but my favorite interface to recommend to people getting started in home recording, which I should say anyone can do. We live in the age of information. Everything is on YouTube, all the tutorials to be able to find all this stuff out. So go and do it. Don't think, it looks too complicated. Like when you see a mixing desk and people are like, do you know what all the knobs do? Yeah, of course you do, because it's not hard to figure out, okay? It's not rocket science. It's really quite simple to figure out what they do. So same thing goes with mixing. It doesn't take long and it will become an invaluable skill. Now, I don't mean to tangent a little bit here, but the reason you should pick it up is because of the fact that if you go to another producer, which you probably will end up having to do, because other producers who do it full-time are going to give you the best quality of product, but especially for demos, when you're just trying to get an idea out there, if you have to go to a producer for a demo, you're trying to explain to them a way to interpret what your inner vision is for the song. But if you learn how to mix yourself, you can immediately translate that to life. You can look at them and say, so you can look at the song and say, and listen to it and go, that's not it yet. I've got to add this, got to change that or whatever. Okay. So if you're in control of your artistic vision, that's when big things happen, because you can actually release a song exactly how you want it to sound and how it should sound to communicate your artistic vision. Excuse me. So that's why you should learn how to do it. And you can with YouTube and all that kind of stuff. But I always recommend anyone getting started in home recording to use a Scarlett Focusrite 2i2. They're inexpensive. They've got great quality preamps in them. They work fantastically for what you need them to do. And they're just amazing. So, and they're used, like even people in really big bands in their little home studio setups, they use 2i2s. I've seen them use them quite often in like behind the scenes footage and that type of thing, tour vlogs or whatever. So go get a Scarlett Focusrite 2i2. They're only like just a bit over $100, I think. Now I don't know what the conversion rate is, but they're not that expensive, okay, for what they do. Considering the fact that it used to cost thousands to get started in recording, absolutely crazy. So if you get a 2i2, plug it into your computer and you play guitar or whatever, you can plug straight in through, I could go on about this forever, but I'll give you a quick overview. If you plug your guitar straight into it like a DI, so you don't even run it through an amp, run it straight into your computer and use digital amps, there are a million digital amp software out there that are going to sound better and give you more versatility than you would have if you recorded a real amp in your house. Now, I know that makes some people mad when I say that, because there are a lot of gear purists that say, no, I've got to use my $10,000 guitar amp on a recording. Now, if you want to, cool, do it. But you've got to understand that once you lock down to that guitar tone, it's permanent. With digital amps, you can change things later, okay? And that's the truth of it. At least you can be more versatile inside your recording software later. And you're also got to make sure that your room sounds great, which is hard to do in like an apartment or a house. Like, that's why when you record guitar amps, in recording studios, they're in ridiculously well-treated, soundproof booths that are just amazing, right? Like with different reflection textures on the walls and certain type of hardwood floor and crazy stuff, right? But if you use these digital amps, they're so much better than they used to be. Again, if we go back to when I was 18, digital amps did not sound good. They sounded like you just plugged the output of your distortion pedal into your computer. It sounded like, as I said, bees in a tin can. But nowadays, they sound so believable that I'm sure most of the albums that you listen to use digital amps because of how versatile they really are. And you wouldn't even know it. They just sound that good. So what I recommend you do is whatever genre you're in. Now, this question, do I need to put money into a home recording studio? Do I need to put money into a home recording studio? Depends. Then again, I'm thinking you could answer that from two ways. Firstly, do you need to? I would say, yeah, you need to, because you need to be in control of your own music vision, right? You need to be in control of your own artistic vision. So yeah, I would say that you need to do that, because it's going to give you crazy steps forward to be able to churn music out like nothing else. But do you need to put a lot of money into setting it up? Absolutely not. Like, if you can save up and just buy a decent microphone and a decent preamp, now this is going to change depending on your genre, but maybe a decent condenser mic, and then you can record acoustic guitar or vocal or whatever as well. Even this one here that I'm using for this is a USB mic, so you don't even need an interface. And I've used it to record when I've had to do something quick. If I had to track some vocals quickly or something like that, I've used this mic, and no one has ever on the recordings gone, oh man, why didn't you use an AKG on that? Like, why didn't you use a Neumann? Like, no one knows, because I think people make too much of a fuss about gear, and that's come from someone who ran a recording studio for 10 years. Okay. So trust me, you don't have to get that involved with it. Use digital amps. Also use virtual drum kits. You can get amazing sounding drum kits as well. Like, I love, for heavier music, GGD, which is by Nolly from Periphery. I was trying to think of his last name. Why can't I remember it? Well, obviously it's Get Good. If it's a whole idea, GGD. So his name's Adam Getgood, right? But anyway, Nolly from Periphery. So he's come up with these drum sounds, and he's like a tone purist, and he's so good at what he does, and I'm a huge fan of his mixes, and he's just so good at the craft. He's made these drum kits that sound absolutely unbelievable, and I use them all the time, and they sound fantastic. But even if you get like Logic Pro or whatever, that comes with some pretty decent sounding drums in it already, but you can also get Superior Drummer or Steven Slate drums or whatever. There are a million options out there, but the drums that you like, using digital drums gives you, again, so much versatility, and they're recorded in $1 million studios, in $1 million rooms, on millions of dollars worth of gear, stuff that we just don't have access to. So use that to your advantage and record your best stuff through that. I'm talking to you if you're in a band at the moment. Okay, if you're a hip hop guy, just buy a good vocal mic, maybe buy a 2i2 if you want a good interface as well. That's a good idea, and you get good samples. Okay, and then you can get better that way, and then just learn how to mix. Okay, that's the biggest one for both people too. Bands, hip hop, electronic, whatever you're doing, acoustic music, just learn how to mix. All of this stuff is gonna, like, all of the virtual drums, virtual guitar amps, they're designed to sound pretty good out of the box, but you can make them sound unbelievable if you put in a little bit of time to learn how to mix, and it's not hard to do with YouTube. Again, I'm sorry, that question has so many different tangents, and I just kind of went out on all of them at once without kind of just sticking to one path. But don't need to spend much money at all. Get get the best quality software instruments that you can afford. They're not too expensive either. I think Get Good Drums is like $100 again, and then you've got access to it for the rest of your life. And that's way cheaper than buying even a single microphone to record drums, let alone the interface, let alone an acoustic. You know what? The price of Get Good Drums is like the price of one acoustic trap to put on a wall before you even think about buying the gear to record drums. So definitely worth the money. And the quality of your recording is going to, skyrocket because of that. But my best advice for this, because I can't specifically know what genre you're recording for, is to go on YouTube and look up other artists that are writing similar things to you. So whatever your genre is, look up their recording processes, and because there are a lot of people showing you how they record their music. So look up what they're using, look up the gear they're using, and find out what is the norm. Okay, because if you can find that out, that's how you're going to know what you should be using to get a similar sound, and you'll be able to find those products. So if you're in a metal band, for example, you might find out that, you know what, a lot of the times that guitar tone you hear is the 5150 sample on Amplitude 4 or whatever, or it might be a Kemper, or it could be an Axe FX. Now they're getting expensive because they're like hardware gear, but it depends. Find what they're using, find where you like the tone of, and get that gear and make it work. You might find that the drums they use are Superior Drummer, or you might find that they're using the Matt Halpin signature kit on Get Good Drums, which is the Periphery sounding drums, or the Periphery 3 kit, the P3 kit they just brought out. Not just, it was months ago, but whatever. They brought out more recently than the Matt Halpin one, but that could be what is the sound for your genre. Now, straight away, if you just implement that into your recordings, you're already going to be one-upping your quality, okay? Plus with, those with sample drums, you type them in through MIDI, so you can change them later. You could send the project file to your drummer and they write out their drum path that they want it to be. It's so versatile. We live in such an age for recording that it's easier than it has ever been before, and it's cheaper than it ever has before. But if you aren't recording your own music from home and you aren't doing that, you're just leaving so much on the table, and you're just really missing out, because I tell you, it teaches you so much more than you might think. Okay, if you record from home, it's not just about trying to achieve the best quality of recording. It's also teaching you how, like, it's giving you practice of being on a microphone singing, for example, so you become a better vocalist. You'll develop better technique. Also, if you learn how to mix, you're going to learn production tricks and stuff like that that's going to help you even further. So when you eventually work in a recording studio, you might be able to be more hands-on with the producer, and you know how to communicate to them exactly what you're after, because you've actually done it yourself. Also, when it's your time to record, you'll be better than you've ever been before, and because of the fact that you've practiced in your recordings, and you'll save so much money if you're paying by the hour, so it's totally worth doing it. So definitely 100,000% set up a home recording studio. You don't need much money. Get some really good sounding virtual instruments and look up YouTube tutorials. That's all it is. Scarlett Wright 2i2, that's what the interface is called. Save you having to rewind as well. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me today. As I said, if you're part of the I Am Northbound Inner Circle, we're going to be answering the question, how can I earn a living as a music artist, just after I wrap up here. But if you're watching this or listening to this elsewhere, come join us. It's absolutely free. There's no catch whatsoever. I've just got all of our previous content in there and a ton more coming soon. So I want you inside the group so that you can make sure that you don't miss a single episode we bring out of all the different shows we're bringing out. You'll also get access to all 13 previous episodes of Live with Jayson John Evans, as well as so much more stuff, as well as our essential email generator tool, which is going to give you email templates. You just fill in a few questions about your music. We don't store any of that information, I should say. It's not any data harvesting or anything like that. It's completely free. And you choose who you want to send it to, like a record label or whatever. Hit generate. It'll build you the perfect industry standard template. Copy paste it, send it straight to the label, and you're going to stand a much better chance of them replying, because a lot of the times people do try to contact labels, but they don't know how to go about actually emailing them in the correct way. No record label executive wants to open up an email that is one sentence long, and no record label executive wants to open up an email that is 15 paragraphs long that goes into too much detail. So I know these templates. I've used them before. This is how we got signed. This is how I liked being contacted when I ran my record label. So I mean, this is exactly how to do it. So go and use it. part of the I Am Northbound Inner Circle, go to iamnorthbound.com. I'm sure you'll see a link for it somewhere, but you can just go find it at iamnorthbound.com. Click the link in my bio of my Instagram account, and you can go and get access to all of that information. Now, hopefully I'm back next week doing these live. So hopefully I'm back on Instagram with you guys, hanging out and having fun. As I said, we've just been trying to get into the schedule of when the baby sleeps and when I can duck away to do these kind of things. So bit difficult for me to, commit to a time ahead of schedule. I guess that's why with my branding workshops, my How to Dominate the Music Industry workshops, how I can't commit to them ahead of time I'm in a tricky stage of life at the moment. We're going to work that out. So thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching this inside the Inner Circle, I'll be back with you in a minute, and we're going to talk about how you can earn a full-time living as a music artist. So have a great day, afternoon, night, whatever it may be, wherever you are in the world. Stay safe, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Live with Jayson John Evans.